I'm a huge A.R. Rahman fan. Since for the last 7 to 8 years, like I listen to his music all the time. So his idea of melodies, again to me, seems otherworldly. It seems like something which it can only come from somebody who's connected. That Ilaiyaraaja had a sound or something that felt different.
Which made you say, I don't want to make music here. I think I would fit better in Hollywood.
I think the quality of music that I was writing here, the audience was not receiving it as well as the international audience. The effort I was putting in these albums, and I had this confidence that what I was doing should be received better, but because the audience was not ready to accept it, I just want to go and do it there. So I realized then, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do it there and people will accept what I'm trying to do maybe quicker, maybe there was impatience. So my goal now is to bring that Hollywood aesthetic into Indian cinema.
Mritu towels from Ramraj, premium cotton and bamboo towels. Super soft, super absorbent.
Plan your next summer escape with Grand Royal Tours.
ரகங்கள் பலவிதம் ஒவ்வொன்றும் உலகத்தரம் தமிழக உற்பத்தியில் உங்கள் அனுஜ் ஸ்டைல்ஸ்.
Hello Prateek.
Hi.
Hi, how
nice
are you?
To meet you.
Yeah, so just to set up the context, you scored the music for Tuyame,
Yes.
Vijay's film that just released. You have a Telugu film coming up, but we're going to talk about music in general.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've gotten this a lot, but you seem to be this really soft-spoken guy, but your genre is death metal.
Yeah.
That's like, it's a big stereotype, I know, but it's like, do you get that a lot? Like people say,
All the
like,
time.
like, oh, I'm a death metal band, member, and then they see you and you're like, oh, wow, you look like you should be doing
Yeah.
Shastriya Sangeet or something.
Which I actually do.
Which you actually do,
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Okay.
Especially after 2017-18, when I started to like meditate and stuff, I feel like that had some effect on my body.
Okay.
So even when I think I'm getting like angry at someone or like, pissed off about a situation, it rarely comes across for me.
Okay.
So sometimes when people tell me that, like my music can be so intense, sometimes in like dark, but people are like, wait, I wouldn't have expected it to come from you. I get that a lot, yeah.
Okay. So before we get into the movie and the scoring, just this, like you were born in Oman.
Yeah.
You spent some time in India, and now you live and work in LA.
Yep.
What was your exposure to Indian film music like? I'm just going to restrict that to.
So I think growing up in Muscat, my dad was always playing a lot of Bollywood music at home, and I'm Tamil, and we used to have a lot of Carnatic music.
Okay,
and
what Bollywood music? Like
so
which?
everything from from AR's music from the 90s to Ilaiyaraaja to R.D. Burman, like everything, the whole spectrum.
Okay.
But I think what stuck to me, like initially as a, you're young, you're like a rebel, I never took it seriously. And I was always listening to more Western music, and I felt more inclined to the West, actually.
Right.
So at some points I was listening to, MTV was playing in Muscat. I used to listen to hip-hop and, rap and all of that. But at the same time, at home, what was playing was just in my DNA. The whole time I didn't know it was building up, So I was always exposed to it, and then fast forward to at least 10 years later, I realized, I knew all of the songs, all the lyrics. I'm a huge A.R. Rahman fan, since for the last 7 to 8 years, like I listen to his music all the time. So I think he's like my North Star in terms of what it means to be a global artist and
Okay.
a global composer. And so, yeah, I'm very much exposed to the landscape from,
Okay.
for
So
many years.
what's your favorite A.R. Rahman song and why?
So I love records. I love listening to full albums. And obviously Lagan was something that stood out
Okay.
to me very early on. And then, of course, Roja.
Okay. And okay, let's take Lagan. Why?
Yeah. I think something about...
when you listen to it, were you at a stage where you could dissect and analyze and say, this is why I like the music? Because when you're young, sometimes a lot of the stuff that we internalize goes in at an unconscious level.
100%.
So we don't really know ki this is the rag or this is the tal or this is the whatever, right? How did you process that music? Were you one of those prodigies that started playing chess at 6 months old and...
Not at all. It was death metal first,
Okay.
when I was 13. But like I said, this was just playing at home. And at some point, when I, went back into listening to it, whether it was playing in a party or whether I just played it on my, on Spotify, the lyrics came back, the tunes came back, everything felt almost otherworldly. Because at that point, I was looking so much to the West. I even went there and studied classical music, and then I realized, oh my God, like what I've been listening to, subconsciously feels like something that I can't quite dissect.
Okay.
Almost. It was like the opposite. So I loved listening to it because it felt fresh. It felt almost like I'm going back to this place that I don't understand music anymore in the way that I do. And so, but it's all there in the DNA. If that makes
Would
sense.
you be able to name some Ilaiyaraaja songs that made a difference to you? Because as a Tamilian, I'm bound to ask you this question.
You know what? His latest, he did a new concert piece which he recorded, I think, at Budapest, the Symphony. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, to be very honest, like I'm not very familiar with separate tunes of his, but just his trajectory and his journey is what's inspired me more than Yaz says. But I did listen to the entire symphony he did.
Okay. Were you there at the hall?
No.
Okay.
But it's on YouTube, and I was just like listening to the whole thing, and I was mind blown.
Okay.
Because it's almost like coming from somebody who has, like his idea of melodies, again to me, seems otherworldly. It seems like something which it can only come from somebody who's connected.
Do you believe that we have this tendency to romanticize the arts, not just music, but any art. When you say we use a word like connected, do you feel that there is truly something inexplicable that creates this art and we are just the vessels for it?
100%.
You do believe that?
People call that talent.
Right.
It's something inherent. I think it just comes to people and you channel, and but it happens and then it's gone. So every time you write music, a lot of composers will say this, they compose and then they don't know how they wrote it.
Right.
You get into a space and it's done, you come out of it, you know how it's created. And I often think that comes from some other place.
Right.
It's just, how do you do it? Like, there's so much sometimes there's deadlines, you're stressed, but still you're able to get things done in this way. You just get into a flow state. And so I think you have to be connected in order to channel.
I read something about you composing that song for an Imran Hashmi movie.
Yeah.
What is the song again?
Sharminda Hu.
Sharminda Hu. Yeah. And that you did in some ridiculous deadline, right?
It was like, I think 2 days max.
Yeah. And this is like from scratch.
From scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you're talking about that kind of
100%,
situation. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what just happened? They said do the song.
Yeah.
And you did the outline of a tune.
Yeah.
And then you did the whole thing after that.
Yes, pretty much. It's like you get the call, they give you a brief, and then you just have to go to that space, whatever it means, whether it's using a tool. So like there's in music especially, you have technique and you have craft and you have the art, right? So the artistic part is what is the channel, I think, the connectedness, and you need the tools to kind of get there. And sometimes the tools will also guide you, and sometimes the artist will guide you. So oftentimes I go to my tools, or I'll just have something playing in my head immediately.
Right.
Yeah. So then it'll either start with the melody, and I'll go to the guitar, or vice versa.
So when you say, for instance, Ilaiyaraaja's symphony is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like, can you just explain that a bit?
Yeah.
Like, because I want to know how you process music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends on the genre.
Right.
So when I think of Western classical music especially, it's very technical, and it's very in depth. And you have your strings, you have your brass, you have your woodwinds, you have percussion.
Yeah.
That's kind of your four main bodies.
Yeah.
And so now that I've studied classical music properly, like I can dissect what a composer does, and then you think it's going somewhere, but oftentimes it goes. When a composer can take you to places you don't expect, especially with classical music, because there's so many instruments, it's like, where do you start? What do you do? You have a solo violin, you've got a string section, you've got a violas, what are they doing? What's the cello doing? And then you have the brass and the winds. It's so much to think about. And so I feel like anybody who can write, for orchestra in general is brilliant. Okay. But now I could hear in that nuance that Ilaiyaraaja had a sound or something that felt different and unique. And, most people would when they listen to classical music, you kind of pastiche it. You're like, okay, this is, you generalize it. You're like, okay, this is classical music.
Yeah.
But, you know, composers like Johnny Greenwood, for example, like when I heard his music for the first time, it felt like something I'd never heard before.
Yeah.
So,
wasn't he part of Radiohead?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And because before he became a film composer, he was part of Radiohead. Yeah. So yeah, he's amazing. I just love his score for There Will Be Blood.
Oh my God.
That is one of the
It's
most
incredible.
mind-blowing things I've heard, and that soundtrack is just incredible.
Yeah.
So anyway, coming back to, so you grew up with this bunch of Indian things, and then you rebel, and then you go Western.
Yeah.
And what are some of the Western things you're listening to?
So it was primarily a lot of extreme metal music.
Okay.
You know, when I was 13, my brother introduced me to Metallica, and I was like,
Metallica's not extreme metal.
so it started there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then soon after it became like Cannibal Corpse and Hate Eternal and Dying Fetus and all these extreme, you know, there's this band Hate from Poland. And it was like black metal and death metal, and it just felt like, again, something where I couldn't quite understand it. So I was like, I want to. You know, I'm like, okay, everyone's listening to pop. I've always had this thing of moving away from the mainstream, because I feel like, oh, if everyone does it, it's probably not timeless. So some kind of a thing I've always had in me. So started with a lot of extreme metal music, and then I played in, you know, I moved to Mumbai, was playing in Gutslit, this death metal band. And then along the same time, I started to listen to more progressive rock.
Okay.
So a lot of, you know, King Crimson and Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson. And then there's this band Opeth, which is actually a death metal band, but they would have all these ballads and like acoustic guitars. And so now I started to get drawn to this other side of it, you know, where it's like, oh, I like acoustic guitars. I like, you know, beautiful, like these melodies and whatever it's making me feel. So I started to explore prog rock a lot, which is basically the ultimate amalgamation of every form of music in the world, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I know it sounds loose, but there are no rules, you know. There's
no rules at all. That's very accurate. You have 25-minute songs. You have like a 2-minute song. You have every instrument possible. So that really opened my mind up. And from there, I would dissect, you know, moments. So. In a prog rock, for example, with Steven Wilson, he used to use synthesizers. So then I'm like, wait, what's that instrument? And then I got into modular synths. I'm like, okay, I want to know only this.
Right.
What synthesizers do. So from death metal, now I'm listening to like ballads. And now I'm listening to only electronic music, like Aphex Twin and, you know, Boards of Canada and all of these.
These
really
are
cool,
what, those old Moog synthesizers?
Everything. So like there's Moog, there's Korg. You know, Korg has some great synths. Everything, pretty much.
So you're kind of speaking of Metallica. I mean, when I had a Hotmail account, my password was Nothing Else Matters.
Amazing,
it was
classic.
So cliche. You know, it's such a cliche. I just had to, you know, laugh about it. So
still a great song.
It's
you know,
just a great song.
Said,
It's still a great song. But it's just that it's that
it's a cliche.
It's that cliche. You know, so it's like it's a great song that's a cliche, and I don't know. It's like some songs get embedded in your mind so much that you're like, do I really need to listen to it another time? Because I literally know it like you know, note for note kind of thing. So what's that song for you?
It's I mean, there's so many. But you're asking about Metallica song? I would say Master of Puppets. That's the first song I learned on the guitar, and even my mom, she till today hum the melody, like the solo melody, because she used to hear me playing it in my room on my shitty amp, and she'll make fun of me till today. She remembers the whole melody. So I would say Master of Puppets.
Tell me about this underground scene in Mumbai.
Yeah.
What is underground exactly, for those who don't know, and what is it in India?
So the underground scene is where anything that's anti-mainstream.
Right.
That's the best way to put it. Where it's meant for cult, you know, a cult audience. It's meant for things that might be anti-government, or, you know, your like veganism. It can be all these situations and are like anti-borders, you know. So a lot of punks and a lot of metalheads, they find a lot of community in those places where they feel like they don't belong in the mainstream.
Right.
Essentially, so they move to these subcultures where it's not just about the music. It's about how you support artists. It's about real DIY movements.
Okay.
Where you're okay with spending as much money as you want in doing a show, and then you don't mind making losses because it's for the community. And then everyone uplifts each other, and everyone's taking care of each other.
Right.
So that's the underground movement in general, right? In music and the arts. But in Mumbai especially, there was a very thriving metal scene when I moved here in 2012. Bands like Bhayanak Maut, and then Sky Harbor was, starting to come up, and then there was Demonic Resurrection, and they was...
what was the year again, roughly?
This was 2012, is when I moved here. And I was a huge fan of like what the culture was becoming. And then there was this band Gutslit, who I watched for the first time.
I love the name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
I watched them play they opened for this band Gojira that played in, I think, NH7 2012 in Bangalore. And I was like, that's such a cool band because the bassist is Sardar, he had like the turban, and I'm like, he's playing such weird music, that's cool.
Yeah.
And the music sounded, again, like something I hadn't heard before. I'm like, wait, this is grindcore. It's not death metal. It's like, now you're going even more underground. So I'm like, I want to know what this is about. And then I started to watch their live shows, and I became a fan. And then before you know it, they needed a new guitar player. And I auditioned, and I was part of the band. And so there were a lot of these bands in the, Mumbai underground scene that have, in fact, played internationally a lot, that have done so much all around the world. But obviously, because they're underground, they haven't quite made it to the mainstream, unless it's, say, Bloodywood.
Right. So, there was a time when singers, performers used to either define themselves with a box or be confined into a box. Like, this person is a Hindustani singer, that person is a Carnatic singer, that person is a metal singer, that, this person is a, whatever, like country, whatever, right? Do you think that today we live in a world where those stereotypes and boundaries still exist, or is it all over the place?
I think there are people who obviously fall into specific genre categories, but I think people are the most open they've ever been.
Right now?
For example, Lady Gaga is such a huge Nine Inch Nails fan.
Yeah.
So is Miley Cyrus. And there's a lot of these crossovers happening, I think, now. And even in film music, right? Like you have people who study classical music but are now forced to write a hip-hop tune.
Right.
And they're open to it, and they're like now taking from the production background, and now film composers, it's not quite what it used to be, where you're sitting on a piano. So I think with technology especially, and just with how open everything's become, people are so curious, and they're exposed, at the very least, to a lot of,
So when you talk to filmmakers, there's two kind of filmmakers. One that say that film school absolutely molded them because they got to have discussions with other filmmakers, and they saw a whole bunch of movies that they would have never seen otherwise, and they got to make their short films and so on and so forth. And then you have people like Paul Thomas Anderson, who said he ran away from film school simply because it was too didactic, and like he didn't like rules being put down and stuff like that. You went to music school in LA. Was that helpful at all for you, or did it make you feel like people were shoving rules down your throat?
It changed my life.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay.
It did for me because I only knew how to riff.
Okay.
I only knew metal guitar playing, and now I want to score films. I'm like, how do I do that?
Okay, so so your ambition at that point was, I've done my guitaring on stage, I need to get to a different zone.
Absolutely.
Now. That was okay.
I wanted to get into film scoring. I can backtrack a little bit, but after my band, when I was doing the band stuff, at some point I was working at Barclays Bank, and then I quit that job. And then I did a marketing gig, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to do music full time.
All of us should get together and talk about what we did before. So, okay. Yeah.
So I did all of that, and I realized I really want to do music. So, but then I didn't know what that meant, because I only knew how to play metal guitar, right? And like compose for metal music. And I knew how to do that in a way that I cracked the code, if I had to put it that way. But then I found myself, a friend had recommended me to write a jingle once, out of the blue. And I was like, okay, let me try this out.
This was in Mumbai?
This was in Mumbai.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. It seems like it's going to pay well. And I got into the studio and I fumbled the gig. I didn't know what I was doing.
What is it a jingle for?
It was for, I think, some brand called Zepto. Not Zepto, sorry.
Like,
it was
as in what product?
it was an app.
Okay.
I think some kind of app.
Okay.
It was like a 15-second jingle, and I completely fumbled it. I didn't know what I was doing. And then I realized, oh, wait, I don't know how to do this. Coming back to how my mind is. I'm like, I need to know. I want to know why I can't do this.
Right.
Because all this time I thought I can do this thing so well. Now I'm like, why can't I do that? And so I started to study music on my own. You know, I'm like, okay, what is jazz? And I'm like, wait, this is too complex for me. Let me break it down. Let's start with pop music. And then I did what I could at home. And I also started to take up more ad gigs, kept fumbling them. But a few of them I was able to crack.
Right.
And so I realized, okay, I'm growing here. And I really enjoyed the thrill of writing in different genres every day.
Right.
And now I realize, oh my God, my mind's opening up even more.
Right.
But then at some point, this is a funny story. I got a call to write a jingle, and I came to a studio at 10 a.m. somewhere in Bandra. There's this studio called Mothership Productions. I was there at 10 a.m. and I left the studio at 10 a.m. the next day.
Okay.
No sleep. And so while I was in my taxi back home the next day, I was like, do I want to be an ad music composer? Like, if this is what it entails, I'm like, this is crazy. So then I started to go back to, and at the same time, I was listening to Nine Inch Nails and Radiohead. They were my favorite bands. So I was listening to them more and more, and I'm like, wait, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are scoring movies, and so is Johnny Greenwood.
So that actually put the idea in your head?
Yes. It all happened like around the same time in this really weird way. And so I was like, oh shit, like, this is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the music I listen to. I don't listen to ad music at home. I listen to these artists. And then I started to dream about Hollywood. And I started to daydream, and I started to like dream, all day, all night. And then at some point, and then I started to listen to Johnny Greenwood's symphonies. He has this, with the BBC, it's called Horror Vacui. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think, an hour and a half of just strange horror music.
Right.
And it blew my mind. I was like, what is he doing with an orchestra? Like, I can study synthesizer at home. I can study pop music. I cannot study an orchestra. I need players. And at that time, India didn't have, an infrastructure for that. So as I started to dream more...
Isn't there one in Bombay or something like that? No.
There is, but they're not...
Like,
which I'm okay with. I think the difference between, say, India's music scene and China's is that China, the kids are growing up playing a lot of Western classical. Mm-hmm. They're like the best violinists, the best cello players. We still encourage a lot of Indian music, like which I think is fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think is great. So it's okay that there is no infrastructure for orchestra.
But that's what you wanted to do?
Yes.
Okay.
I realized, now this started to tickle, something in my brain. And I was listening to these artists so much that at home I started to explore and, tinker around. But at some point I realized, okay, I really want to study orchestral music. Mm-hmm. And I want to do what they are doing, and which is like film music in Hollywood, for having a really big impact and just using my artistry. I saw how they use their artistic backgrounds to kind of do it. And so I thought, I want to follow in this direction.
Right.
And after that is when I realized I need to study music, because I couldn't study. I didn't have access to orchestras. I have to read and write music now. I didn't study music growing up. And so I applied to programs.
So you didn't know how to write music
no,
and all that?
Not at all.
Right, okay.
And then in 2018 is when I took almost the whole year off, and I just studied for this USC program. And I knew I wanted to get into only that school. They take only 20 students in a year. It's a master's program.
20 students from all over the world?
All over the world,
okay.
Every year.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you there.
Yeah, please.
As somebody who studied for the IIT,
yeah.
How do you study for a music school?
I had to learn sheet music. I had to...
So you had to learn how to write music?
Read and write, both.
Okay, I thought that's what they would teach. No.
So because it's a master's program, their expectation was that you're going to come with an undergrad in music.
Okay.
So the odds were against me.
So it's like what you would have done in 4 years or something, you had to do in a year.
Not even 4, maybe like since you were a kid.
Okay.
Like people, like all my peers at USC, I'll get to that. They're all like prodigies, and they all have double masters, and So I like shot for the moon, and I just that whole year even the application was very intense. You had to score like 3 to 4 scenes, and you had to transcribe your music. And
fantastic!
And
they would show you scenes without music.
So you can pick any movie scene without music, and you just had to score it, and that was part of the application.
What did you pick?
I picked Life of Pi, I picked Charlie Chaplin, and I picked Mad Max trailer. So Mad Max had like my whole metal and percussion influence. Life of Pi I got a bansuri player, and I infused like some Indian Hindustani scales into it, and then Charlie Chaplin was more. I tried the whole straight up Hollywood system thing, where it's only orchestra. So I picked those 3 scenes, and I just studied for that for a whole year. I got into that program, and on day 1 of my USC program, everybody around me was in shirts and button-ups, and they all came from Berkeley, from NYU, and Peabody, and all of this. And I had this Dying Fetus T-shirt, and I had long hair then. And I kid you not, I was like, I need to go home.
You look like a member of Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I was like, I need to go home. I don't belong here. I was shitting bricks. And one of my professors, who's a veteran orchestrator, Pete Anthony, he was also my professor. And on the first day I met him, and I told him, hey, I'm so excited to learn from you. And the first thing he looks at me and he asks me, he's like, can you read? And I'm like, not really. He's like, you better start. And so he literally hit my insecurity, on that first day. Yeah. And so I threw my ego out of, I decided to start from scratch and learn everything I could. And that program changed my life. Yeah.
So this is how many years is the program?
It's a 1-year master's.
It's a 1-year master's. Yeah. And what do you learn in that?
So they have 10 recording sessions in the biggest studios all over LA.
Okay.
From Capitol Records to East West to Warner Brothers, to Sony, all of these studios. And what they divide all of these sessions. So you start with just a string quartet.
Okay.
Then you go to a brass quintet, and then you do woodwinds, and then they slowly grow. Then you do a chamber piece,
right,
of like up to 20 players, and then you're doing a choir piece, and they build you up into a capstone project, which is like 65 players in Warner Brothers Studios.
Okay.
So you have to like write your piece, you have to conduct it, you have to orchestrate it, and you have to copy it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's like the musical equivalent of getting a 6-pack in a year.
Yes, it was a complete crash course. Like they throw you in the Hollywood system, and you have the best players in the world who are now playing your pieces at the best studios with these professors who've all worked in Hollywood, and it just completely exactly what I'd been dreaming about wanting to do. Right. Now I was in those spaces.
Now, how do you break cliche? I wanna talk a little bit about that, because there are thousands of musicians, but we remember maybe like 100 of them. You're talking about various musicians. Somebody then comes along and then says, I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
And we remember the people that do something different. How did you know that you had it in you to do something different from all the stuff that, whether it's your dad's Hindi, Tamil music, or your mom's whatever, your brother's Metallica, how did you know that I can break all these cliches which are inside me?
Yeah.
And you can't take them out.
Yeah.
It's not like you can lobotomize yourself and remove that. How did you know that you had that in you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I find that a mystery.
Okay.
But
you were confident.
At the time, yes.
Okay.
For sure. At every one of these, roads, I knew something in me it was such a strong feeling.
Right.
And I just knew I had to do it. It was just something that came out of nowhere. I almost feel like this is where, my spiritual brain comes in. I'm like, this is karma. It's like I was meant to kind of, sometimes things are just taking you along.
Right.
And they happen out of the blue. I didn't ever think I would be a musician full time. Forget scoring films, forget playing in a metal band, any of that. So, yeah, it's just complete accident, or I don't know what it is.
If someone were to ask you, you would strongly recommend going to a school to learn music?
The best schools.
Okay.
Do your research. That's very important, because I knew when I saw this program, there were other programs I applied to as well, like NYU's Masters in Film Scoring. Similar program, but 2 years.
Right.
And then University of Toronto, they had a music technology program. And I applied to all, but I knew that even if I get into those, I still only want to go to USC.
Right.
Because what I had in my mind, it perfectly aligned with that program.
Right.
Where I knew that I want to study with orchestras, I want to work in Hollywood, I want to score films, like have a big impact. And what better way than with people who work in the industry?
Right.
You know?
That's actually not an easy dream that comes to many people, because there are musicians, there are people who feel they can do music, but they do it where they are. Like, if they're born in Chennai, they do it in the Tamil film industry. If they're in Kerala, which is not to say that they cannot crisscross, but even if they do that within the Indian system.
Yeah.
So it's very rare to find someone who is based here and says, I want to score for Hollywood films.
Yeah.
And that you're just saying you don't know how to explain that.
No.
Okay, all right.
It's not, there's no one answer, there's no logic, it just happened.
Yeah, I don't think these things have logic.
Yeah.
But sometimes they have a process that maybe you can think through, but
Yeah.
you just don't.
No.
Okay.
Like, how would I know that I would even like Radiohead and listen to it so much and then find out Johnny Greenwood is doing this thing which I, at the time, knew I want to move to, and then I'm listening to Nine Inch Nails, and then, you know, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are doing this thing which I was experimenting with at home, and then there was this program that I saw, I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing, and work so hard towards it, like, you know, it's so random.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, what's interesting for me is, let's take chess or tennis, right? If you're a chess like whiz in India or a tennis whiz in India, then the natural progression is to join the tennis circuit, go train abroad, because that's where the ATP rankings are, and similarly for chess, all the stuff. You know? Whereas within India, there's a thriving music scene.
100%.
A music scene for films.
Yeah.
But you said, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
I'd rather do this in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting for me. So, so this music didn't interest you at all?
At the time, no.
Okay.
At the time, I was not
interested. So we're talking about early 20s, 2000s.
2019. 2019 was when I went to LA.
Okay.
Yeah, so between 2012 and 2019 was my journey in Mumbai.
Right.
With music, actually. Yeah.
Right. And that's when your jingle thing happened and all that.
Jingle was from 2015-ish till till the time I left. I was like still trying it out.
Okay. So don't you find it a tad ironic that I'm talking to you because you did Tuyame?
Exactly. Life is funny.
Okay.
And it's, you know, my wife says, it's like life winks at you. Never like, you know, don't overthink it, just enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I do. But it's like, you know, you kind of reject this and go there.
And then it pulls you back.
It pulls you back.
How, why, where, when, who knows. In fact, that happens so often in my life. Like, I did not like pop music. I would listen to it and dissect it, but I knew I never really wanted to do it. And then I ended up literally producing songs.
Not even like the latter-day Beatles stuff, like Revolver.
I didn't grow up with the Beatles at all. My mom did. Okay. Because she grew up in Calcutta, and like that was, you know, a huge culture of a lot of British pop.
Even though they're called pop, their latter-day albums are very
interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Like, I think from Sgt. Pepper's, all those are very kind of bizarre stuff. Yeah.
Totally. They were now in modern day, if you had to say, they're experimental.
Yeah.
They're not experimental
then,
pop, you know.
Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
The Beach Boys album.
Yeah.
That's another very...
It's
for
cool.
a pop group. It's
I
very,
agree.
Yeah. So
definitely different. But again, my thing was only underground, experimental, weird, textural, strange. You know, all of those were the adjectives, and it was contrary to what was happening in pop. Now it happens a little more often. Like Halsey released a record which Nine Inch Nails produced.
Okay.
It was a great record, and now I've become slightly more pop. You know, I accept it more because I was thrown into this movie where the movie's called Trolls, band together. It's a DreamWorks movie, and I had to produce songs with Justin Timberlake as the executive producer on the album, and I had to do it. and I had to figure it out. And then I came out actually enjoying the process a lot. So it's the same thing where sometimes I move away from something, it pulls me back, and now I'm just like, whatever comes, let it come. You know?
Right. That's nice.
Yeah.
Be open to everything.
Yeah. Now I'm like not as intentional and focused. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to see where life takes me.
Okay. Can you pinpoint the exact thing that you were not happy about, without naming names, not happy about the Indian music scene, which made you say, I don't want to make music here. I think I would fit better in Hollywood?
I think the quality of music that I was writing here, I could tell that the audience was not receiving it as well as the international audience.
And you're saying this how?
For Gutslit, you know, the album, we would tour so much internationally. People were talking about it. Like the record I did, Amphitheater, that was the first record I did with them. I wrote, produced, mixed. It was like my baby. And the reviews still today, like people talk about it as an underground classic in that world. And I started to realize like my sensibilities, I don't like compromising. I really like to make things edgier, like push it in an international way. I'm not saying India doesn't have that. We have like arguably some of the most talent in the world. But at the time, something about the effort I was putting in these albums, and I had this confidence that what I was doing should be received better, but because the audience was not ready to accept it, I just want to go and do it there.
Okay.
And I released a solo record with, I have a solo moniker called Hoya. Mm-hmm. The album was an Apple Music's thing and this and that, but people barely bought it, you know, but it did so well internationally in that scene, to the point where people are still selling the records on eBay US and this and that, and I don't have a copy.
Right.
You know, so it's so I realized then, I'm like, oh, maybe I should do it there and people will accept what I'm trying to do maybe quicker, maybe there's impatience. I don't know, yeah.
But one last question about here is, did you try like maybe approaching directors or people here to say, can I make a score or songs for your movie? Did you try that here?
No, I didn't.
You
because
didn't
at the time I was still like growing and I didn't feel confident.
Okay.
So if I got Tuyame 6.5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to score it.
Okay.
I just wouldn't have.
So that confidence was given to you by the school, the master's program, and your experience in Hollywood, doing stuff like Trolls, The Mandalorian, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Was it intimidating?
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
So after school, like I immediately started working, you know, and I got to work with arguably one of the best music teams in the business, in the world. And again, I was like, am I faking it? What's happening? You know, it's so strange. And so I just had to figure it out because, you know, I basically had auditioned to work for Ludwig Göransson. Two of us got put up for the gig and I didn't get the gig. I got the number 2 spot. And so his right hand at the time, Joe Shirley, he was like, hey, I really like you. Why don't you work for me? I'm leaving Ludwig's team. But inevitably, it's like a family, you know, so we got pulled into some of Ludwig's projects and all of a sudden we were working on The Mandalorian, on the Book of Boba Fett, and then Trolls also came via that same, you know, family, and then we did the Creed movie, which Joe scored, but Ludwig executive produced the score, and I'm like, oh shit, these are people who are working on Oscar-winning movies.
Yeah.
I better figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's a very small team.
And what do you do there? As in, like, what is your credit there?
It's like a startup.
Okay.
So you do everything from additional music to music editing to tech stuff. Sometimes I'm cabling studios. Sometimes you're just there. Everyone's like, it's like working as a team, you know? Okay. You're working on building templates, making sounds, creating loops. Sometimes they would
When you say templates, you mean themes?
No, templates like for the technology. So for Cubase, Pro Tools, you know, you're using a digital audio workstation, you're creating these massive Hollywood templates for the workflow to be super smooth.
Okay.
For the composers and artists and...
so, you know the huge rolling credits that come at the end of the movie, right? Where would I find your name?
I've got everything from an additional music credit to additional music production to score programmer to synth programmer to synthesist to score technical engineer. It's like all of these, it's everything.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And so being put in these startup-like environments, I think, made you know a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. You have to.
Okay.
It's like running a business.
Right.
If you want to be the CEO, you better know what everyone's doing. And you better know what you want people to do.
Right. So
Yeah.
is Tuyame, let's not talk about your virtual reality feature yet.
Yeah.
Is Tuyame your first credit as the primary music composer?
I've scored other features before. They were indies. So my first feature was with, it's 25 cents per minute. Justin Baldoni has a company called Wayfarer Studios.
Okay.
So that was my first solo credit in 2021.
Okay.
But since then, I've been in the music department world.
Okay.
Working, and I've done a bunch of shots. I've done another feature called Portal to Hell last year that went to some cool festivals. And but yeah, Tuyame is my first, I would say, bigger, working with the responsibility truly felt like something I wanted to take very seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
So this music is really, really good. I mean, I told Bijoy that. Bijoy Nambiar is the director, and I told him that the music was really, really fantastic. And so there's this, the movies, it's schizophrenic, right? Because on the one hand, there's this kind of love story that's building, and on the other hand, there's this creature feature that's happening. And of course, they're intertwined, but at least for a while, they're going their individual paths. And you're kind of doing two things here. One is setting up the menace for that world and setting up I wouldn't quite call it a romance, but the emotional stuff for this world. What made you say, take me through the whole process? Like Bijoy's telling you this is what this is.
Yeah.
And your mind is saying what? Okay, these are the instruments I have to choose. What's happening?
Great question.
Okay.
It's a very good question. So the first thing is I got a text from Bijoy. He's like, can we get on a call? And I said, sure. And he gave me probably 3 to 4 adjectives.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So it started with him wanting to just listen to my music. And then eventually he was like, hey, do you have anything in the 70s and 80s synth world, to remind you of like old school creature features? Like, and I sent him a bunch of music, and then he was like, hey, can you write me a theme? And I want strings. And then I told him, okay, I want more information. But he was shooting and he was on set, so I didn't want to like bug him. And so I just took a stab at writing this whole suite, which was about 5 to 6 minutes. It started with what he had in mind, the synth idea, and then from there I wrote a melody and just like really made this whole, almost like a bank of the themes and the ideas. But I didn't stop there.
Okay.
Because I thought, okay, if I give him just one piece of music, I'm shooting in the dark, let me write whatever I feel like doing. It's like when you're reading a script or lyrics, you kind of want to keep building on it like an album.
Right. Whatever strikes you.
Yeah, whatever strikes me. And so I had all these other ideas, and I gave him all of those. So I wrote about 4 suites, totaling about maybe 20 minutes.
Okay.
Before seeing anything, before getting a script, or any of that. And thankfully, he loved all of it, and all of it got used in the movie.
Nice.
All of it became the DNA from which we kind of built the entire movie score.
Okay.
So yeah, I hadn't seen anything, and then after that, he started to feed me just scenes. I didn't even know the first half had this whole romantic part. All I remember was, it's a survival thriller, creature feature.
Yeah.
So yeah, he started to feed me just scenes, and I was, like I said, shooting in the dark and just scoring, using all those themes, and he guided me from there too. He was like, hey, I want you to repeat this a lot. I want you to, let's repeat the theme a lot, which I find very refreshing. And so, yeah, I scored the entire second half of the movie eventually, and I didn't even see the first half.
Okay.
While I was almost done with the second half. And then I got the first half, and I'm like, holy shit, like it's so cool, But then the challenge was, okay, how do I kind of, the songs are there, sure, but it shouldn't feel like you're moving to 2 different movies. So
how do you connect it?
Yeah, my job was to figure out with the music, how do I connect it, and how do I also, keep the build right? When it starts with the whole, the songs and how do I kind of have that menace building through that subtly. And even for the songs, I had to take the stems and kind of music edit them and add a little bit of additional production. So yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of the process.
From what you're saying, I think it might actually be a good idea to randomly throw scenes at you
Yeah.
rather than show you the whole film, in which case you may start thinking linearly
Yeah.
and have like a motif develop, and then you kind of play with that, and it's like a cliche Dr. Zhivago kind of
Yeah.
thing, whereas this is a very different feel and tone of movie.
Yeah.
It's a little more jagged, for the lack of a better expression.
Yeah.
So maybe this way that you got the music in hindsight turned out to be better, because
Great.
you were
Yeah.
doing bits of pieces and then finding the overarching
Yeah.
theme, as opposed to constructing or having in mind an overarching theme and then doing the sub melodies
Yes.
of that. Would you say this is a
Absolutely. I love writing themes even before I see any. I love just, either reading a script or speaking with the director or the producer. And from there, I love building the worlds even before we've seen anything.
right?
So that is also my process.
Yeah.
However, I've never had to score just the second half first.
Yeah.
That's definitely something which is different. And even Bijoy has said that. He's like, I've never given a composer just the second half to score. He's like, you're the first person I've done that
Yes,
to.
yeah.
So,
In Hollywood,
Yeah.
or in Western countries, let's take Hollywood, right? There are two types of scores. I'll take a cliche because it's easy. There's the Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Superman, those, John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith kind of
Yeah.
scores that are brassy and
Yeah,
big, and
yeah.
they're meant to evoke that awe and grandeur,
Yeah.
and they're big. That is,
Yeah.
the score is supposed to be a character.
yeah.
But equally, you find many, many movies where the score is invisible almost, in the sense that you're kind of, it's behind, and it's the rest of it is driving the movie forward. The score is like invisibly propping up,
Yeah.
or inaudibly propping up
Yeah.
the movie. In India, the score functions a little more differently, because it's like a poke in the ribs to the audience, right?
Yeah.
So it's like and again, that's the tradition. It's we have a broader melodramatic theatrical tradition,
Yeah.
which some people now are trying to break. But the point is that the score is very big here. Like,
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, look, the score for that is good," and let's like that becomes a thing. How did you balance your training out there, where a score has a different meaning, versus the necessity of a Hindi film, where a score is supposed to function a little differently?
I did not even think about the fact that this was a Hindi movie.
Okay.
I just wanted to make the score as fresh as possible. I wanted to use all my training and expertise that I've learned from fantastic mentors and just like working at such a high level in Hollywood. And inevitably that's become my thing too, right? So my goal now is to bring that Hollywood aesthetic into Indian cinema.
Okay.
So I didn't think about what the people will like over here. I didn't think about, it was just me and the director.
Okay.
It was just Bijoy and me, and we were like, and he was also very encouraging.
Okay.
He didn't want me to have tropes or any of that. He said, just do your thing.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I didn't think about that at all. And I, of course, I'm seeing a CGI crocodile. If you're not inspired, I'm like trying to overcompensate. And so I made sure I did that too, to make it really like scary and almost hellish, because I was like, okay, I need to be afraid. And now if I'm seeing a CGI crocodile on my small screen, I'm not feeling that. So I'm going to make sure with the music, irrespective of how everything ends up becoming, my job is to make this as crazy and fun and exciting and dark as possible.
Okay.
And that's all I thought about.
What do you mean by Hollywood tropes?
So for example, when you look at more than Hollywood tropes, I would say Bollywood tropes.
Okay.
Like tropes over here,
Okay.
right? Like if there's a funny moment, you add like funny music.
Yeah, like Mickey Mouse music.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You don't have to do that,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I'm like, sometimes let the silence do the talking, And so my taste is the opposite of what people might, some people might say, oh, let's end the movie in this grand epic way. And I'm like, if there's a part 2, why should we do that? We should end it with a question mark. So in that way, what people expect, I like to challenge the story, and the narrative, and become more like a filmmaker and bring in the opposite of what a trope could be or what people are expecting.
Right.
If that makes sense.
But at the same time, film being a popular art as opposed to, let's say, Ilaiyaraaja Symphony, which is going to be a more niche kind of consumption kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas his film songs and film scores are going to be more popular.
100%.
So, with film being a popular art, don't you think that some of these tropes are there for a reason?
Yes.
Because they're serving an audience
Totally.
that is trained a certain way to kind of respond to music?
Absolutely. At the same time, if I am part of the filmmaking process, I love to throw in my perspective, whether it works or not.
Okay.
Because even I enjoy films, right, as an audience member. And so what I like to see in films, I like to kind of think of it that way too. What would I like in this movie?
Right.
And so I love to throw that perspective, irrespective of what people think, because I think we underestimate how smart people are.
Okay.
We really underestimate how smart people are.
That's really a chicken and egg question here. Yeah.
Yeah. And like people, I think, want fresh stuff. They want a different thing. They want something to talk about. And there are some movies, of course, like they want to just go and have a fun ride. I'll still try and, bring in that perspective. Or sometimes I'm on board. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, cool. I get it. But if I have a perspective, I'll always make sure I try to push it through. If it gets rejected, that's totally fine. So I don't really think about the audience.
Okay.
And I barely do but I do listen to the director.
Okay.
Because it's their movie, it's their vision, and they know what they're doing. They've been living with the script for so long.
Right.
Whereas the audience doesn't know anything.
Have you ever ended up with a director that did not know anything about music?
Many of them don't. And those are the ones who often might use music just to elevate a scene.
Yeah.
Not that they're not fantastic filmmakers, it's a choice. But I've noticed oftentimes directors who use music as a tool in filmmaking. Like silent movies, how did it start? It started with just a person on a piano and no voice and just images, right? Music has always been 50%. And so my thinking is use the music.
Yeah.
Make it loud. Like it's better for everyone. Everyone loves that process. But yes, there are filmmakers who are definitely afraid because they might not know music as much. They know how to handle a camera. They know how to produce on set. They know how to edit. Music is something which is the biggest question mark for most.
Yeah, because it's so abstract.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's subjective too. And so, there are people who don't know it, but my job is to kind of psychologically get into their world, realize why they're afraid, like how much to push, where to take a step back. And then at some point you choose your battles. You're like, okay, 90% of the movie I'll do what they want, but the 10% I care about, I'm going to push for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your thing. Now let's talk about your VR experiment.
Yeah.
Firstly, for the audience, why don't you just outline the theme of the story rather?
Yeah. So in general, like virtual reality or the project the projects I'm working on with.
No, the one that you worked on.
In the Current of Being, yeah. So in the Current of Being is, it's a VR project which it's about, there was a Caroline Mercer. She had basically been through conversion therapy, and so she was electrocuted, and she had to, she thought something was wrong with her, and but all she wanted was to change her gender. And there were all these archaic, barbaric ways where they tried to fix her and tell her, no, you're fine. Mm-hmm. And so essentially the director, Cameron Costopoulos, he just recorded an interview of hers and built this whole world around her interview.
Okay.
Where it starts from her story and then it eventually goes into how, we are all more connected and more normal and more similar than irrespective of race and, gender and all of these things. So that's the gist of the project. It's about Caroline Mercer's journey through conversion therapy and just how barbaric the practice is and the fact that it's still practiced in most US states, in a lot of US states. So, yeah.
So, and the way you approach your music.
Yeah. So
why, and also how is scoring for a VR project different from scoring for like a regular 2D film kind of a thing?
VR is incredible. It's the future. I think, it's been around for about 10 years, by the way. Like, most people still think it's new, but it's kind of like video games, There's this whole billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry where, you're just using music spatially. It's not just stereo now. You can do so much more. You can treat it like sound design. You can treat it like, for example, in the Current of Being, I recorded electricity and I used my synthesizer to make, sounds from scratch, which is literally I'm taking waveforms, sending them through like filters and abstract combinations to, generate sounds from scratch. And I came up with these electric current sounds. So that was the basis of the project. It started with sound design, and then I built the musical world around that. So I would enhance the story sometimes I would enhance the world, because VR, you can like turn around, you're it's like 360. And so sometimes I wanted people to feel like it's a psychedelic experiment, and so it's a lot less linear. It's almost like 560, I don't know, 10D. So yeah.
So as I've seen a bunch of VR stuff, but like quite long ago, and I'm not really kept up with it because there's not much of it in India. But let's assume that there is this woman who's undergoing conversion therapy.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a scene.
Yeah.
So if I look like this, I see the woman and her pain and all that.
Yeah.
But if I look at that way, I see the doctor performing the conversion therapy.
Yeah.
So what music would you give for this, and what music would you give for that?
I would keep it in a similar world.
Okay.
For both.
Okay, because it's
depending
happening
on
in
the
same
situation.
space. Okay,
Exactly.
right.
So it's situational. Now, if she's getting tortured,
Okay.
I'm going to make it like torturous.
Okay.
I'll make it dark and just keep the people engaged in that moment, irrespective of the movement. But sometimes, like, there are moments where it becomes abstract deliberately. So, there's this. Cameron used this idea of birds a lot, and birds flying and how they're so similar and they move together. And in that moment, I got more abstract, because you look around, you're just seeing a bunch of birds like flying towards a burning tree. And so there I can like mess around a lot more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what has been your, would you say that the defining moment of your career has been that master's course?
Which score? I'm sorry?
Of the defining moment of your course, of your musical course.
Yeah.
Has been that
master's program.
That's been.
It's definitely been one of many.
Right.
Yeah. It's like constantly hitting the reset button.
Okay.
So that was one of the reset buttons. But yes, like my trajectory all of a sudden went from like this way in India to that.
Okay.
So actually, you're right. Yeah, that's kind of what it was.
So let's talk about the Telugu film that you're doing, and it's going to come up for release soon.
Yes, in the summer, I believe.
Of course, music depends on the film at hand, right?
Yeah.
So it's like not all Telugu films are the same, but generally speaking, what's the difference between the Hindi ethos and the Telugu film ethos?
I almost feel like the Telugu industry feels like a family.
Okay.
It's like...
musically, I'm talking about.
Oh, musically, yeah. So, again, my approach is the same for both, where the director, Baba Shashank, for the Telugu movie, he's also very open to an international...
What's the name of the movie?
It's called Birthday.
Birthday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, he is, he wants me to do something that's not done in India, essentially. So, I kind of did my thing. I blended metal music, I blended electronics, I blended orchestra. I kind of did all of that. And I've written 2 songs as well, co-written with, an artist.
Written as in the lyrics?
Not the lyrics, the production and the melodies, yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about the score and then the songs?
And the songs,
yes. So that was after Tuyame?
Yes. Oh, actually, it overlapped.
Okay.
They overlapped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you do in Hollywood, would I be right in saying that just like actors, the musicians do take on one project at a time, or are they doing multiple stuff at the same time?
I think unfortunately the business now, which is shrinking budgets, everyone's doing multiple projects.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and even a lot of, I think after tech companies have come and started to acquire film studios, it's become, a business. The business model's completely changed. When advertising was the revenue to get your royalties, it's now subscribers, and that's a random. There was a system, and so now tech companies coming in, the budgets have shrunk, and even a lot of top-level composers who could do one project a year maybe 10 years ago, now they're like trying to take projects below. So the mid-level composers are like scrambling. So I think now everyone's inevitably doing multiple projects, and yeah, this is what it's become.
Okay, so you do now when you look back, because it's that I'm just asking you about that. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Because you may get it.
Yeah.
But pros and cons, it's working for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So
absolutely.
You know that you'd have a more peaceful life probably if you did that Barclays job.
Yeah.
But this is what you want.
This is absolutely what I want.
This is the adventure that you want.
This is the adventure. This is the excitement, the fun, and the fulfillment. Like I can spend 17 hours a day with unlimited energy just writing music.
Yeah.
And then I'm forced to sleep because it's 2 a.m., not because I want to sleep. And then I'm like, okay, it's 2 a.m., cool, I gotta go. And then I sleep and I wake up and I'm recharged again. Sometimes it's anxiety because there's a deadline, but yeah.
How do you deal with feedback?
I would say I'm pretty good at like taking feedback, because I think if someone has an opinion, it's for a reason. And for example, a director, okay, it depends who's giving the feedback. Yeah. So if it's someone who I know genuinely I respect, I admire, and I feel like, oh my God, like this is their project and this is their baby, of course I'm going to take feedback. It is a collaboration. You're working on a film or a VR project, whatever it is. But there are times where, like at the nth moment, someone just comes in and has an opinion, and you and the director have been in this certain space working, and then it's difficult sometimes. But I always try and make sure, even if I give somebody something, it goes a long way.
Okay.
And I always try and make sure everyone kind of is happy.
Right. So on behalf of those who want to follow your path and to kind of, go and make music in Hollywood, what's needed? Do you need a visa of a particular kind, a citizenship? What do you need?
A visa. So you can, I think when you go to study in the US, you get an F1 visa. It's like an education, like you're studying. And then you get a year to look for a job. That's your OPT. And then in that period, you kind of have to apply for another visa to make sure you can stay beyond.
So that's what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on an O1 visa, but my wife lives she's from LA.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll be transitioning to a green card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that'll make life a lot easier.
Yeah,
okay.
I guess. We'll see.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Obviously technology has changed the way composers make music. You no longer need a huge room filled with, violins and percussion and this and that. You can just, you can work on your own. You can work long distance.
Yeah.
But has technology changed the way composers think about music?
Absolutely.
In what way?
I'll give you an example, right? Pop music in the 90s or 80s and 90s, there was a band in the room playing.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're talking about Beatles.
They were jamming.
And now, what is pop music to you? It's all synthesized, computer-generated sounds. So the entire infrastructure and how you listen to music, the production has changed. You can literally trace it back to technology.
Okay.
Sounds are more accessible, like instruments are at your disposal. You can have like string sounds.
But isn't that just using technology to create music? I'm asking if the thinking itself has changed about, the way you think about music, the way you conceive music.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so, because like as a consumer, as a creator. Yeah, it has, because before you'd have to buy records to listen to music and CDs, and then you were getting inspiration from all these ways, and now I just turn on Spotify while I'm writing and I get inspiration and I'm able to like churn something out. And just the process, I think, has become a lot more, it's become easier in a way to access and to produce music.
Would you say it's like there's a bunch of stuff crashing into you, and therefore your mind is now exposed at the same time to a lot more influences than it might have been earlier, where you play
100%.
one record? That's what you're saying.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes the brain work differently.
Yes. Absolutely. It's like you're scrolling on reels now all the time. Like it's impossible to have, even 3 years ago nobody was doing it.
Right.
But now our brains are so, like, they're literally changing. The brain chemistry is changing real time.
Right.
So same with technology. I feel like because of access, because people can now record entire bands on a laptop. You needed studios like this, you know. And now I think because of that, to consume, to produce, and then deadlines are shrinking, budgets are shrinking. Everyone's just kind of in this mentality of you got to figure it out more than it has before. And so there's almost like less, you know, like the process sometimes can feel a little more isolating.
Okay.
You know, and so it's very important to bring filmmakers into a room and still try and encourage the music making process with a band. It keeps it much more exciting in this world where people can just produce on their laptop. Does that make sense?
It makes sense,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering now if there's a romantic in you that is sad that many live musicians are losing their jobs.
100%. That's
Okay.
happened.
Okay.
It's happening. It's happened. It's unfortunate.
Okay.
You, like the unions, the musicians union now in LA, and even the they're fighting to get a post-production bill passed because scoring stages are empty for like 20 days in a month these days. These are massive scoring stages which were filled out, booked out like every day
Yeah.
for years. So it's happening real time, and I know a lot of my friends who've gone to music school to learn the violin, to learn the cello, and they're professors, they're teaching, they're not necessarily able to go and play in movies or like play in symphonies or orchestras all over the world. And that's just for them. Now think about a guitar player or a pianist. Like, I am not a piano player, but I can now play the piano because the sounds were accessible. I didn't need a grand piano.
Yeah.
And I now can program the piano well enough where I don't have to hire a pianist unless I'm doing a live show.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're responsible.
I'm the younger generation.
Last few questions.
Of course.
Who are some of the Indian filmmakers you'd like to work with?
I can name production companies.
Okay.
I think whose movies in general I really enjoy.
Okay.
Tiger Baby is, you know,
Something.
fantastic.
Right.
Dharma's got some really good stuff. Vasan Bala is an amazing filmmaker. I love his stuff. He's also got the, you know, a different
Yeah,
sensibility,
he marches to a different drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I love.
Yeah.
Anyone who comes from the Anurag Kashyap camp, what they do, you know, where even if they've got a little bit of influence here and there.
It has a great ear for music.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that world, I think, is
What you get into.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And finally, give me one song, Indian song. It could be Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, whatever
Yeah.
it is, that really blew your mind when you listened to it. Recent one. Because I just want to see how you process the songs.
like a recent song that's come out.
Or if it's a little older, something that's relatively.
So there's this one record, there was this movie which went under the radar. I think it had Vivek Oberoi called Kisna.
Okay.
So I think
It's Rahman's
the
album.
2000s. Yeah,
Subhash
Rahman
Khair.
and Ismail Darbar.
Darbar, yeah.
That record hit me like a truck recently, because I
Wow.
was, I was,
I would have never expected this answer. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I just heard
Did
that.
Rahman do just one song in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did just one song, or
Yeah.
and Ismail Darbar did most of it, but I don't know if it was on a playlist or something. I'm like, oh my god! The last time I heard this was probably when I was eight years old. There was a CD at home. My dad was playing it, and I knew all the lyrics. The melodies were so beautiful. It just felt like haunting, and it just kind of took me into the space of Jesus. Like, what's happening? I love Ismail Darbar's work as well. You know, like.
This
He was
is
incredible.
amazing because I think he's one of the most underrated composers.
Absolutely.
Whether it's actually he's known for Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, but he's
What a
done
record.
other
Yeah.
stuff as well, which is like very strange because he has this orchestral envelope.
Yeah.
But the melodic structures within them are really running wild.
Absolutely.
So,
they're incredible.
Yeah,
It's like,
and even the rhythms.
Yeah.
The rhythms, like he just really
Complex.
plays with them. Plays with
He's
them.
a complex, like,
Yeah.
really brilliant mind.
And sometimes it makes me think that maybe there's another film of his that had some very, very good music. Tera Jadoo Chal Gaya.
Oh my God, that was a great.
Yeah.
Was that Hrithik Roshan? Maybe?
No,
Or
it was. It had. I remember Kirti Reddy, Abhishek
Kirti Reddy.
Bachchan.
Oh
and
my God, I loved.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that movie. Abhishek
Yeah.
Bachchan and Kirti Reddy. Yes, she
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, even she had a few movies and then she was out of the radar.
Yeah, but whatever.
But she was a great. Yeah, it was
Tera Jadoo Chal Gaya.
the main tune.
tune.
Yeah,
It's like
so good.
Yeah, and then it just goes from
wild.
this end of the octave to there, and okay, anyway. Okay, that's enough. So, but that's a bizarre connection, and I just want to tell you that, just like you had that jingle that made you say that you do not want to do advertising, this is not what you came to do. So, I knew I wanted to write. So, where do I end up? Advertising.
Yeah.
As a copywriter.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking that, okay, so this is, like cool writing or whatever it is. But then I'm slowly beginning to realize that copywriting is more about selling a product. And it often has to do with writing what the client wants written, but in a hopefully interesting way.
Right.
And I was like, that's not what I want to do. So
you kind of, you're like, I want to do my own thing
My
and
own
write about what I believe and bring your perspective.
Yeah. I wanted to do writing from, as pretentious as it sounds, my soul or something.
Of course.
So
How's that pretentious?
Yes.
It's unfortunate that it's deemed pretentious. You know what I mean?
I know, but some
yeah.
people hear this and say, oh, you're talking, like weird shit. But anyway, thank you so much. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
this conversation.
Same. Thank you for having me.
Good luck and see you soon.
Yeah.
Mritu towels from Ramraj, premium cotton and bamboo towels. Super soft, super absorbent.
Plan your next summer escape with Rand Royal Tours.
ரகங்கள் பலவிதம், ஒவ்வொன்றும் உலகத்தரம். தமிழக உற்பத்தியில் உங்கள் அனுஜ் டைல்ஸ்.